So hello and welcome to another video tutorial here on the 3DFixAndPrint channel. And today we are going to be talking about let's say a PDF file or a guide that I have created for you so that you can use uh, supports on your 3D prints effectively so that they give you the best performance. Basically what I have done is that I have searched a lot of sites on the internet or posts and stuff, and I have tried various methods and settings so that I would get the performance that I want my prints or even your prints to have because one of the hardest things to do in 3D printing is printing something that needs to be supported. A lot of people don't know how to do it, or the supports are really hard to remove, or they just don't print well, or the supported face isn't printed well. So basically what this does is that this basically eliminates this problem, and it gives you let's say really great performance of the supports itself. So let's dive into it. Basically what you need to do is just download the PDF file that I will give you, and to go along with me as I'm talking. It's not necessary to have basically the visual aids of the video now, but we are going to later dive into the results, as you can see, because I have different parts here on the table, so that we are going to see how it really performs, how the supports can be removed, what is the surface. You can see also that in the PDF file, so feel free to scroll over it, or just let's dive into it. And we are going to start. When you open the file, what you see is the 3DFixAndPrint PLA and PETG supports guide, meaning that this supports guide is mainly focused on PLA prints and PETG prints, and also basically the support itself. So let's say you have a PLA print with a PLA support, PLA print with PETG supports, PETG print with PETG supports, and PETG print with PLA supports. So the combination of them. So let's start. The first thing you see is the support settings for PLA print and PLA supports. So basically you have just one material for your print. Maybe one thing to consider is that some things will depend on the material you are using and the conditions under which you are using it. So if it's moisture, if it's dried, if it's, I don't know, in a place where it's colder in your garage or something, it depends. That's why there is also this video, because we are also going to be talking about why are certain settings set it up in a way they are, so that later on, if you get some sort of problem, you can either ask me in the comments or on any social media, or you will know how the stuff works, so then you can basically adjust something depending on your needs. So I would say that mostly it doesn't matter which materials you are using, unless you are using some really low quality ones, some cheap aftermarket materials and stuff. If you are using a great brand of a material and it's quality material, then it should work with every material, I would say. So let's start. The first thing you will see is the support settings for PLA print and PLA supports. So meaning we have only one material for the print itself. First things first, you want to have the supports enabled, and you want to have the 3 supports on. 3 supports are by far the best supports you can use in terms of print time and also the material that it uses. Now let's go into the settings that are like important and are or has been changed, So let's go. The support wall loops, I recommend having it set to 1, meaning that the wall or the support itself, the 3 support, has like two wall layers, so that it's thicker, so that it can withstand like longer prints, more like vibrations and stuff so that it doesn't break easily during printing. So that's really important. The top Z distance, you want to have that to be set to a value of 0.2 millimeters, because essentially you are using the same material with the supports and with the print, meaning that if you would use 0 millimeter gap, it would just basically stick together and you wouldn't be able to remove the supports. So the 0.2 millimeters is that so that it creates a free space for the model itself and also for the interface layers, so that they match like perfectly, so that it is removable and you have a nice result in the quality. Another thing is the top interface layers, which is important, and that is that basically you have 4 layers of the foundation for the model, and after that there is going to be the printed on top of it. So basically you will prepare 4 layers of the support interface, and then is going to print the model. The support interface layer will be looking nice, will be even, consistent, and flat, meaning that the model itself will be printed in a higher quality. The interface pattern is also very important, and it's important to be set in the rectilinear pattern, meaning that it's basically a base printed in one direction. So let's say it's not something that's going to be printing like concentric from the outside or from the inside to out or from the outside to in. So it's just going to be laid on flat. You don't need any like special patterns then. The rectilinear pattern works for everything, and it's by far the best thing. Top interface spacing, I believe this is the setting that tells you how far away the lines of the pattern are. So you don't want to have the pattern, let's say, like really tied up and tied together. You want to leave a bit space between the lines so that the model doesn't like stick to it basically if you don't want it to happen, you know. So it needs to be like it sticks but not that much, you know. So this is like let's call it a happy place, you know. The support object x and y distance, this means that from the closest wall the support interface layer is going to be the 0.35 millimeters away, meaning that it's not going to touch the wall so that it doesn't stick to it or something. So this just prevents the model to stick to the supports and preventing you from getting it off. And the other things are just basic settings that are in the slicer. So next thing is PLA print and PETG supports, meaning that now you have a different material for the, not necessarily all the supports, but for the interface layer, meaning that only the layer which the model is going to be in contact with is going to be printed with a different material, because the materials such as PETG and PLA, they are chemically different, so they don't react with each other and they don't stick to each other. You can just print PETG straight on PLA and you can separate them. So that's why we are going to be using PLA print and PETG for the supports, because it's going to be then easier to remove and the surface is going to look nicer. So let's go over it. The supports stay basically the same, 3 supports all day long. Another thing which you can see there also in the file and in the print screen is that the support and or the interface layer is being set to a different material. So if you will load 2 different materials into the printer, you say one is PLA, second is PETG, you will be able to basically define which material to use for the support interface layer. So you will just open the column or something, and you will see that there is the option to set the PETG or the different material you want to use for the support interface layer. So just change the material to the other material other than the printed object. So another thing that's really important is that you need to change your flushing volumes. You need to find a setting in the slicer where it says flushing volumes. I believe it's on the, you have the tab with the materials you have in the printer, and it's just above it. So you will need to change the flushing volumes because the materials will be like changing one from the other, because it's going to print one layer of the object and then it's going to print one layer of the support interface in different material. So the printer needs to change materials. The flushing volume is in a base setting, it's something around 200 millimeters cubic, I believe it's. So for your, let's say, prints where you print from the same material, it's just enough so that it cleans itself from, let's say you have different color, you have, let's say, white and red, and you are going from white to red, so that it ensures that the color you are going to print next is going to be the color, you know. You don't want to print white color if it is supposed to be red. So the basic settings are fine for this. But if you are using a different material for an interface layer, you need to flush a lot more material out of that nozzle, because there is, I would say, still some chemical residue left in the nozzle, meaning that it will later on like interfere with the structure of the chemical structure of the interface layer, meaning that it will either stick too well to your print, or it will not stick at all, or maybe it will do some weird stuff. Like I have instances where it was like basically there was no material, it was just all like voided, you know, there wasn't material, it was like basically with holes and stuff where parts were missing. So when I changed the settings from the basic, from the 200 something millimeters cubic to 650 millimeters cubic, it worked just fine. Yeah, this is going to influence how long it will take to replace the material in the printer, and also how much material you are going to be flushing away, but it's necessary if you want to have stable and consistent results. Another thing that are changed in the support settings is that I've just made the initial density of the layer 100%. That's not going to influence anything. 90%, 100% from the basic settings doesn't really matter. Now, two important settings: top distance and bottom Z distance. The bottom Z distance isn't as important, but the top Z distance is crucial. This is going to do the slicer by itself, that it's going to set to the 0, because it knows that you are printing basically two different chemically different materials. So basically it knows that it's not going to stick together, so it just sets the value to 0, so meaning that you are straight printing the other material on the interface layer, like with 0 millimeters of gap. Another thing is that base pattern spacing is set to 0. Now you can have basically as much of the material on the interface layer as possible, so that it's flat, it's smooth, and the material, in our case the PETG, can be printed on the interface layer. Top interface layer is set to 3. 3 to 4 should work just fine. It doesn't matter if it's 3, it doesn't matter if it's 4. The less the layers, or let's say in this case the more of the layers, the longer it's going to take to replace the filament, and the longer the print, etc, etc. But I wouldn't go lower than 3. 3, 4, it's like the sweet spot, you know. Interface pattern, the rectilinear So basically it's going to be the same setting for all of the prints. The top interface spacing set to 0 millimeters, support object xy and xy distance 0.5 millimeters. Now it depends, but you need to have some kind of reserve so that you are not touching the walls of the model or something that's near it. As you can see from the file and also here on the table, I have a model that's basically a, let's say, a square with a no like middle portion, so that we can really nicely simulate some kind of a overhang. In this case, this was the basically this was a surface that it was printed on, and so opposite to it, this surface was fully supported, and as you can see from the file photos, it looks perfectly. Another thing is the branch distance in the tree support, meaning that now you want to have as much of the branches and as much of the supports on one place as possible, because you are going to be printing a different material on the supports itself. So that means that you want to have really strong foundation, strong basically place you can print on the interface layer. So that's why this set to a 1 millimeter between each of the supports. So we have gone through the PLA prints and PLA print with the PLA support and PLA print with PETG support. So I would say let's go and let's see how the supports remove and what are the results. So basically I'm going to move this away so that it doesn't influence us. So now here I have two prints. One is PLA print with PLA support. Second is PLA print with PETG interface layer support, as I should be correct. So as you can see, the PLA and PLA, basically I don't have the opportunity to remove it on the video because it has removed itself while I was removing it from the printer. But as you can see, the interface layer is pretty nice. There is also the rectilinear pattern and also the 0.3 millimeter gap between each like line, so that it's not that tied up. Another thing is that the interface, or let's say the object or the surface which this was supported, looks really nice. It's not, let's say, 100%, but it looks great enough so that it is, let's say, usable, and it looks great, and the supports are really easy to remove. So the supports are easily removable, and the supported face looks, let's say, 80% good out of 100, so 8 out of 10 points, I would say. And now let's try something else. And now this is a PLA print with PETG supports. So this didn't come off by itself, but we are going to help it. So I'm going to basically remove these branches, and now I'm going to take a cutting tool and try to remove basically the interface layer. As you can hear, it cracks really nice, and I can already see a really nice separation from the print itself. And just like that, with only bit of force, and I was able to get it off really easily. Now just some cosmetic stuff. So now the printed surface is like flat as it can be, as you would be printed this on the heatbed, let's say. So it's really flat. You can see there is like some black spots from the black PLA, but this is just because I was using, white PLA and black PG so that I can see this stuff, and so that you can also see it. but the surface itself looks really nice and is really, really smooth, and it was really easy to remove the supports, as you could see. So let's move on, and now we are going to be looking at some, let's say, statistics of how it printed. So the results, when it was printed with PLA material and PLA supports, the material it consumed, it was the 7.71 grams, and when it was printed with the PETG support interface, it consumed 12.26, meaning that it consumed a lot more material because it needed to change the material between the layers and stuff, so it needed to flush the material away essentially. So, and as I have calculated, the increase was 59% in the material consumption more. If you go from the PLA support to the PETG support interface, and the print time was 94% higher, so meaning almost double as if you would print with the PLA print only. This is like also related to the flushing stuff, because it takes a long time to flush all the material from the print head, because essentially you need to like flush a really big volume of material away, so that's what takes time. So and also it was maybe for the fact that there was a prime tower used, meaning that the printer was printing a tower where later on it was like cleaning itself from the materials, so that maybe adds up some time, but I think that it would be, let's say, like 70% more if the prime tower wasn't there. But it really doesn't matter. You just need to see the fact that it like increases, and need to understand that if you want a nicer looking print, it's going to consume more material, and also it's going to take longer time to print. So that's basically it for the PLA print and PLA support, and PLA print and PETG support. So let's move to the next settings, which are for the PETG print and PETG supports. A lot of the settings are basically the same. What we have only changed is that we changed the material of the print, and we just changed the material of the support interface, so that we basically interchange them, you know. So basically the settings are almost identical, almost. We are going to like look what's different. So PETG print and PETG settings, of course, enable support, 3 supports, basically mandatory. Now PETG print, PETG supports, so meaning you have same material. Top Z distance stays the 0.2 millimeters. Also, you are printing material with the same chemical compound basically, or something, so it's chemically same for the interface and for the print itself, so meaning you need some kind of gap between the model and the support interface so that you can separate it from each other. Base pattern spacing, that's the spacing for the supports on the print bed. Top interface layers, again 4 layers, pretty consistent, works basically every time. So 3 to 4 should do well. Top interface spacing, also as the PLA, you don't need or have to have the interface layer like full of material, so that's why it's going to be a bit more like stretch out, and you will see gaps between the lines. Supports, XY distance from the support 0.35 millimeters. You want to have some gap so that you are not touching the walls, and basically it would then result in you wouldn't be able to get the supports off if it just stick together with the wall of the object. Another thing, basically it stays the same as the slicer sets it. So anything below that, basic settings. Another thing, support settings for PETG print and PLA supports. So now we are having PETG print, and the interface layer for the print is going to be from PLA. So let's dive into it. Supports enabled, 3 supports, same as the other ones. Now the support raft interface is going to be from the PLA material, so you just change the order of materials. Now we are printing the model with PETG, and the interface is going to be from the PLA. The flashing volumes also 650 millimeters. It goes like same from one material to the other, so this should work in this way or in the way before, where there was the PLA print and PETG support. So 650 millimeters cubic flush away when it's changing materials. Very important, so that you flush all of the material and all the chemical residue from the nozzle, so that the materials can basically do their job as they should. The top interface layers, 3 layers for the PLA to print a nice foundation on which is then going to build the model. The top Z distance, of course, 0 millimeters. Now since we are printing the chemically different material, you can now have the 0 millimeter gap in the Z distance, so that you are printing exactly on the laid surface basically. Top interface spacing 0, meaning that there is basically a full interface layer printed without any gaps, so that it's one surface which is perfectly flat and perfectly filled in 0.5 x y distance from the object, meaning that you have some reserve if something bad happens, you just don't touch the walls. Branch distance 1 millimeter, again as from the PLA print and PETG interface layer. You want as much of the little branches on next to each other as possible, so that you can print a really nice interface layer, so that it joins together and it stays together throughout the whole print. So basically you can think of it as you just basically reverse the materials, basically it's 90% similar. So now let's compare these two materials. When we use the PETG print and PETG supports, the material consumed there was 7.3 grams, and when we use the PLA support it was 11.7, so there is 59.6% difference. So basically 59 was in the PLA and PLA support, so it's basically identical. Second thing is time. It took 1 hour for the PETG print and PETG support, and 72 minutes, so basically hour and 12 minutes for the PETG print and PLA support, so that's 22% increase from these two. One thing maybe that influences it a bit is that there is only 3 interface layers in this print, so that it's one less than it was from the PLA print and PETG supports. No, I'm incorrect, it's still 3, but I think it's because of the prime tower that we have talked previously in the PLA and PETG, so that you can see how much the prime tower actually does. So basically take this with the reserve with the time. It depends on some things, even on the fact that the PLA is being printed faster, the PETG prints slower, etc, etc, but the prime tower does really much, adds like more time to it. So basically this increased just time wise 22.27%. it will depend on the model you have and stuff, etc., etc. So just take this as some uh, general explanation and stuff, that this is not going to be the same for every print, every object, every material. So is that, you know, there is some relationship between the print time, uh, used material and stuff, if you are using different materials for your supports, different for your prints, so that you know that it influences it, and generally seeing that it does influence it some way. So another slide is the visual results. So you can basically see how the supported surfaces look, and you can see that better from the pictures than from the video. I will, let's say, show you it here, but I don't know if you can see pretty much anything, but I'm trying to show you the supported surface, and maybe you see it, maybe you don't. That's why there's the PDF file with all the photos included, so that you can see the results. Or you can just use the settings, print it, and you will have them on your own. So uh, I have forgotten to basically show you the supports removing on the PETG prints. So maybe will put this short footage somewhere in the middle of the video. Maybe I will put it on the to the end of the video. It doesn't really matter because you will, if you are going to print this, you are going to experience it. So I just want to show you that it works on the video, you know, so that it's not like, oh, you are talking like trash, it doesn't work and stuff. So now I have a PETG print and PETG support. I have already removed it from the middle, just no force basically needed, just need to break it so that I can pull it out. The surface, as from the photos, looks exactly the same as on the photos. So that's the PETG print and PETG supports, and let's go with the PETG print and PLA interface support. So let's remove the branches so that we can access these supports better. And now I'm just going to use a cutting tool, and I've just used no force at all. I just pinched the material and it came flying away. Now I need to figure out which was the supported side, because it looks so great. I mean, if you can see it on the camera, this looks like really, really nice. This is like the opposite face that's printed, you know. It was printed in basically this orientation. So this is the top surface, this is the supported thing, and they look almost identical. The last important slide is that printing temperatures. You may say that if we just interchange the material of the print and the supports, it's going to be basically the same for the settings, but it's not quite that easy, because PETG is a lot more sensitive to temperature and requires more temperature to print, and also the bed to be heated. So let's go over it. So with PLA print and PLA supports, PLA works fine with 55 degrees Celsius. You can go, let's say, up 5, down 5 degrees, depending on where are you printing. If you are printing in a hotter room, there is higher temperature, you can lower the temperature of the bed. If you are printing it somewhere where it's a bit lower temperature, you can increase the temperature by 5 degrees. It should be fine. The nozzle temperature for me with PLA works 220 degrees Celsius, works just fine. So these are like some basic settings, you know, you can find this in the size also. So we don't need to go too deep into them. But when you have PLA print and PETG supports, the PLA print still needs only the 55 degrees Celsius to stick to the plate well. If you have clean plate, it's not like greasy or something, or let's say you use some kind of spray to as a glue to stick the print better to the bed. Nozzle temperature of the PLA 220 degrees, and then if it changes from the PLA to PETG to print the interface layers, you need to have a higher temperature because the PETG needs a higher temperature. For me, 235 degrees Celsius works just fine for the printing. A lot of the manufacturers or the brands say that you can print it with 250 degrees and stuff. It's not necessary. The 235 works just fine for the speeds that we are going to be printing the PETG with, because PETG shouldn't be printed as fast as the PLA. Uh, that may be related to the time standpoint of the basically time increase and stuff. Uh, Now, another thing is PETG print and PETG supports. If you are printing PETG or if you never did, bed temperature should be 75 degrees. So for me, it works just fine. Again, you can go down 5, up 5, depending on your conditions of your room or the place you are printing in. Nozzle temperature 235 degrees as in the previous example. Also, one important thing is that you don't want to have a high difference in temperature of the material, because still there is hot material that's being purged or printed on the another material. It's not printed on the build plate, it's printed on another material. And since PLA has a lower temperature than PETG, when it starts to get like liquidish or more squashy and stuff, that's why you don't want to have a big difference in temperature. The 235 degree temperature works fine and doesn't influence the interface structure, because you are printing a material which needs higher temperature to a material which needs lower temperature. So you need to be really careful with the temperatures. So let's now reverse it, and now we are going to have PETG print and PLA supports. So basically switched logic or switched materials. The bed temperature, I set it to a 60 degree. Why? PLA can be printed on a bed with 60 degree easily, but PETG requires the 75 degrees, or works well with the 75 degrees Celsius print. But what is important is that the PLA of the interface layers is going to be influenced also by the temperature of the bed. If you have an opened printer, it's maybe not going to be a problem. But if you have a closed printer, let's say you have the Bambu P1S or the X1 Carbon or even a Prusa that's closed, the PLA has a 60 degree temperature when it starts to like you are being able to like let's say deflect it by the heat or something. So meaning that you don't want to go really high on temperature. If you would use the 75 degree bed temperature for the PG print and PLA supports, you may start see some inconsistent results or maybe some problems. The 60 degree temperature, although for the PETG material is low, you can still do it. You just need to have really clean print bed and use some kind of a stick glue, or let's say the 3D lock, the spray that you spray on the print bed and it makes the print stick better to the plate. Or you can use the brim function so that it has like this around the print so that it sticks better and doesn't warp and stuff. For me it worked. Maybe for you, you will need to make some changes. But that's why is this video. I'm explaining to why you use these settings, so that you know which settings later on are going to be influencing the print itself. So the nozzle temperature for the PETG print, again 235 degrees Celsius, enough, works fine. Now, important thing, the nozzle temperature on the PLA interface is 205 degrees. It's lower than it was in the example of PLA print and PETG sulfurs, so the reversed materials basically. Why? It's because, as I have said, the hot material is still being printed on a other material, and the PLA needs to be at a lower temperature because it needs a faster time, or it needs to be cooled down quicker, so that the hot material of the PETG can be printed on a cooled surface, which is cold and it doesn't, like stick badly to it or something, so that it's only for the reason that the PLA interface structure needs to be cooled down quickly, so that the PETG can be printed on better. So I hope you understand this. You will see, you can try it. You can try to use the same temperatures, just reverse the materials, and you will see there is some variation in the results. I have tried it. I have used the 220 degree Celsius for the PLA support interface, and it wasn't working. The material was just so much liquidish from the 15 degrees of the difference there, that the PETG wasn't able to print. Basically, it wasn't printing on a cooled surface, so that's why it was, or not necessarily cooled like cold, but on a surface that was in a great temperature range for the PETG to be printed on. So I hope this makes it clear. There is also some conclusion down in the PDF file, so you can read it. There is basically some things that I have talked about, and I hope that I have explained it to you nicely in a way that it's understandable. And also that if you have any questions, feel free to ask, feel free to text me or anything, just like spam me with messages and I would answer to you. But I could just give you the PDF file and you would be fine if you would use the correct settings. But it's important sometimes, or a lot of the times, it's important to understand things from the why perspective, like why is it set it up in a way that it is. So I hope you understood this, and I hope it's clear to you, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and I am really excited to post another videos. There is something special being prepared in the background, but this was a bit like spontaneous, so that I was like, oh, maybe I should do this tutorial. So I sit down and I wrote this file so that you can have a much better looking prints, much easier time removing supports, and maybe just a new experience. If you are someone who likes to print and don't know what to do, you can try this so that you can test how it works for your setup. And also, just the knowledge itself, you can use it to then share it with other people that don't know this or are new to this topic, so that you can teach them how to do it, because this is what the channel is about teaching you, sharing you the experiences, and sharing with you cool stuff, so that you can share it later on and enjoy it. So thanks for watching this video, and see you in the next one. Bye.